Moving beyond standard terms, the art of structuring the deal. As we continue through Chapter 4, we now take negotiation to the next level, contract structuring. While negotiation determines what terms are agreed upon, structuring determines how those terms are built into the deal. This is where experienced commercial agents truly stand out. Commercial real estate transactions are rarely one-size-fits-all. Each deal presents unique challenges, and the ability to structure creative solutions can mean the difference between a failed deal and a successful closing. This section builds directly on Section 4.1. Once you understand leverage and negotiation strategy, the next step is designing a deal that aligns with your client's goals while managing risk. Understanding risk allocation. Who takes what risk? At its core, contract structuring is about risk allocation. Every provision in a contract shifts risk between the buyer and the seller. For example, a longer due diligence period shifts risk to the seller. A non-refundable earnest money deposit shifts risk to the buyer. Strong representations and warranties shift risk to the seller. Limited disclosures shift risk to the buyer. Understanding how these elements interact allows agents to craft agreements that balance protection and competitiveness. This ties directly to AAC R4-281101, which requires agents to exercise reasonable care and ensure clients understand the risks involved in their decisions. Creative financing structures. Expanding deal possibilities. One of the most powerful tools in commercial contract structuring is creative financing. Not all deals rely on traditional bank financing. Common structures include seller carryback financing, assumable loans, lease-to-own arrangements, joint ventures, or partnership structures. For example, a buyer interested in a commercial property in Mesa may not qualify for traditional financing. The seller agrees to carry back a portion of the loan, allowing the transaction to move forward. This type of structure can benefit both parties. The buyer gains access to the property, and the seller creates an income stream. However, these arrangements must be carefully documented to avoid legal and financial complications. Earnest money strategies. More than just a deposit. Earnest money can be structured in ways that influence negotiation and risk. For example, incremental deposits, increasing after due diligence, early release of earnest money to the seller, non-refundable deposits after certain milestones. A buyer may offer a smaller initial deposit with a larger additional deposit after due diligence. This reduces early risk while still demonstrating commitment later in the transaction. These strategies tie directly back to Section 2.2 and show how contract elements can be adjusted to achieve specific outcomes. Contingency structuring, balancing protection and competitiveness. Contingencies can be structured in creative ways to protect the buyer while making the offer more attractive. For example, shortening contingency periods, limiting contingencies to specific issues, including automatic removal of contingencies after certain conditions are met. A buyer may agree to remove certain contingencies quickly while retaining critical protections, such as environmental or financing contingencies. This approach requires a deep understanding of risk and timing, as discussed in Chapter 3. Seller concessions and credits. Strategic adjustments. Seller concessions can be used to bridge gaps in negotiations without adjusting the purchase price. For example, instead of reducing the price, a seller may agree to provide a credit for repairs or closing costs. In commercial transactions, this can also include tenant improvement allowances, rent credits, or lease restructuring. Assumption of certain expenses. These adjustments can make deals more flexible and help align the interests of both parties. Agents must be careful to structure these concessions clearly to avoid confusion or financing issues. Special clauses and addenda. Customizing the contract. Commercial contracts often include additional clauses and addenda to address specific situations. Examples include environmental indemnity clauses, assignment provisions, non-compete agreements, operational transition agreements. For example, a buyer purchasing a business along with real estate may include a non-compete clause preventing the seller from opening a competing business nearby. These provisions allow the contract to address unique risks and objectives that standard forms may not cover. Real-world scenario, structuring a complex deal. Consider a buyer interested in a mixed-use property in downtown Phoenix. The property has existing tenants, deferred maintenance, and financing challenges. Instead of a traditional purchase, the deal is structured with a seller carryback loan, a reduced purchase price with repair credits, a phased earnest money deposit, extended due diligence for tenant review. This structure allows both parties to address their concerns while still completing the transaction. This example demonstrates how creative structuring can turn a complicated deal into a successful one. Agent responsibilities, staying within legal boundaries. While creativity is valuable, agents must remain within their scope of practice. Structuring deals should not cross into providing legal or financial advice beyond their expertise. Under AAC R428-1101 and AAC R428-1103, agents must recommend that clients seek professional advice when dealing with complex legal or financial structures. For example, when drafting a seller carryback agreement, an agent should recommend that the parties consult with legal counsel to ensure compliance with applicable laws. This protects both the client and the agent from potential liability. Connecting structuring to strategic success. This section builds on negotiation strategy by showing how deals are actually constructed. Negotiation determines the terms, but structuring determines how those terms function in practice. Together, these skills allow agents to create solutions that go beyond standard transactions, making them more valuable to their clients. As we move into the next section, we will explore advanced risk management and compliance strategies, ensuring that even the most creative deals remain legally sound and professionally executed. Online discussion. What is the primary goal of contract structuring in commercial real estate? Answer: to allocate risk between the parties while creating a deal that meets the goals of both buyer and seller. How can creative financing help a transaction succeed? Answer: it allows deals to move forward when traditional financing is not available, providing flexibility for both parties. Why is it important to use addenda and special clauses in commercial contracts? Answer: because they allow the contract to address unique situations, risks, and objectives that standard forms may not fully cover.